Welcome back to my channel, Miss Personal Finance, where we are budgeting our way to financial freedom. In today's video, we'll be going over our sinking fund categories for 2025. So next year is right around the corner, so let's get started. Now, for our household budget, we are 1 month ahead. That just means we save up each pay period for the following month because we already have the current month's expenses accounted for and paid for at the beginning of the month. Now, a vital part of our household budget and our financial stability comes from sinking funds. If you take a look at any of our monthly budgets, you'll see that you won't see typical things like a phone bill or car insurance, anything that we can pay in advance, either annually or quarterly or biannually. We do it so that we don't have to account for that as a monthly expense. So this is where we capture those additional subscriptions and services that, again, are paid annually or a few times throughout the year. Now, we are primarily digital budgeters, so I have each of these categories inside of our Ally high yield savings account, which also has different buckets where you can allocate the name, the goal, the due date, the amount, and earn interest on it as it builds throughout the year. But I do want to record what those categories are going to be for next year, so I have an idea of how to update our buckets in our high yield savings account. Okay, so I like to categorize my sinking funds in the order, basically in chronological order by the due date. So for our first bill of the year is going to be our HOA. You know what? I'll use blue today. A little fancy. So this is going to be 2025. And then our first fund is going to be HOA. So our HOA dues are due once a year, and I'd like to save up about $350. So these are all estimates because things fluctuate, and with inflation, I feel like everything is going up even when it doesn't necessarily need to. So the way I look at sinking funds, if it's over, that's great. You can either roll it over to another sinking fund or leave it in that account for the next time that bill is due or that expense is due. Or if it's short, it's still better that you saved up some or most of it versus not having anything at all when that bill is due. So you'll see that all of these are going to be round numbers based off of the estimate from the previous year, plus rounding it up and trying to account for some inflation as well. So the due date is going to be in January. Also for the due date, I always make the due date the first of the month because I want to make sure that it's available and ready, especially if they are on auto pay or I don't remember what date they're actually due. By making the due date the first of the month, I know that I'm always ready if that bill comes due and I don't have to scramble throughout the month to take care of that amount. I used to do it like the month before, but I didn't feel like that's necessary. So for 2025, we're going to make the due dates the first of the month that it is due. All right. So right now, I'm actually starting fresh. I cleared out all of our digital sinking funds. Pretty much by December, everything that is due for the year is already paid or in the process of being paid. So I just like to have a blank slate and start fresh. So I'm not going to be filling out these sections right now, the beginning balance, because it's all going to be zero. All right, so next thing in January, we have Amazon. I know people go back and forth about Amazon Prime, but we do use the delivery service, especially with having younger kids. It's not always possible to go out to the store as frequently as I used to or as I'd like to. So Amazon Prime does become a lifesaver at times. So I don't know what the actual amount is. Again, I'm not even sure what inflation is going to look like. So I'm just going to put 145, which is a little bit more than it was last year. And another thing I like about paying items in full or once a year is that you typically get a discount. If you pay Amazon per month, I believe you're paying like $15 or $16. But if you pay in one lump sum annually, I think it averages to like $12 or $13. Either way, you're still saving about $50 a year if you paid in full. And that tends to be the case for a lot of things like car insurance and other deals. So those are the two January ones, and I just need to make sure that we have those amounts in these sinking funds by January 1st of 2025. Okay, so next in line, this is an oldie but goodie. I know a lot of people have already switched to Apple Music, Spotify, or even Amazon Prime, which also has a music feature, but I love me some good old Pandora, and I just pay once a year so there are no commercials, and that is due in March. I believe that's on auto pay, and I'm just rounding up and just trying to account for any increases for next year. Now, typically, I don't create sinking funds for amounts that are less than $100, but in this case, because it's so random, if I don't put it down, I won't remember it. So yeah, this Pandora, $65, because as you can tell, with the amounts less than 100, you're more likely to be able to cash flow in that month's budget. But again, a lot of these things are on auto pay, so I just want to make sure that we have them ready and accounted for and on time. Okay, so the next thing for April. All right, so our car insurance is paid twice a year, so I always do break them up. Car insurance 1. And guys, this is high, but with increases, with some accidents and things like that, this is the lowest that we can get as of right now, and I'm actually just hoping it doesn't go up in April. So we'll have to see what that is. And just like any budget, sometimes you just have to pivot or adjust as things come at you, and that's okay. But again, even if this is less than what it truly is, having some saved up or majority of it saved up is better than having nothing saved at all. So that's going to be for the car insurance, the first one of the year. All right, and then this is our phone. So for Mint Mobile, we pay for 3 lines once a year. And this one, I believe after the fees and everything, it's maybe like $900. We have 2 on the unlimited and 1 on like the $15 a month one, but then there's a service fee every time you make the payment. Again, I do believe it's less than $1,000, but with inflation and fees and taxes, I just want to make sure that we have enough, and it's better to have too much than not enough when that time rolls around. All right, so that is due in June, and that's also why we don't have a monthly monthly cell phone bills on our household budget. Okay, so the next thing, June, August. Okay, so August, we have 2 things. We have our pest control. Again, this is one of the things we get a discount for paying annually versus monthly. And I'm going to round it to 400, but it should be a little less than that. We'll see. And that is for August. Also for August is Costco. So this is a membership that we pay for only once a year. And because we use Costco so much, we typically always get the cash back check that they send once a year. So it typically covers majority of what the actual membership costs. So it's kind of like a built-in discount. All right, so that's for Costco, and that's August. And then comes, okay, part 2 of the car insurance. So the second car insurance payment, lump sum, 6 months later. And again, we don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to, based off of last year and adding a little for inflation, we're going to put 2,300, and that's for October. Okay, and so for November, we have AAA. That's about 115. Let's do 120 just because we really don't know what that's going to look like. And then this one. Okay, so for holidays between November, this is specific for between November and December. Not only do we have the traditional holidays, but we have major birthdays in December. So we try to save up a little bit because, again, some is better than nothing. And usually that's when our budgets tend to take the hardest hit, is around holidays or special occasions. So we've been budgeting about 800 per year. We may need to change that, but I have that due by November so we can start shopping early if we need to, if we see any sales for birthday gifts or Christmas gifts. We haven't done Black Friday in a while, but you never know. Sometimes things randomly pop up that we may want to grab, and we do most of the time participate in Cyber Monday because we're probably online shopping anyway. All right, so for some people, this is specific and says like Christmas, or some people break down every single holiday. Again, we just throw a lump sum in there, and that either covers or helps mitigate the total amount that we spend during the holiday season due to the holidays and those birthdays. And that's what we have as far as our sinking fund categories. I'm including all of the ones with specific goal amounts, and these are going to be different for every household. You know, some people have, school categories, clothes for themselves or their children. Whatever works for you, things that you just know are going to happen and you want to make sure that you're saving for them or you're ready for them financially. If it usually throws you off, take a look back at the last maybe 2 to 3 years. And if there's a category that always seems to spring up on you or pop up out of the blue, one, it probably isn't out of the blue and you kind of know it's coming. So just go ahead and prepare for it. Add it to your sinking fund tracker, calculate how much you need, and use that as a guide for your savings throughout the year so you know that you have it ready and available whenever you need it. Now, there are going to be some other sinking fund categories that don't have specific amounts, such as like an emergency fund or rainy day fund that I spoke about in our financial goals for 2025. Also, there are two things that I always keep a running. Again, this doesn't have an exact amount due or time frame because it's ongoing, but home maintenance and car maintenance are two buckets that I have in our online high yield savings account, and we just try to replenish it with any extra that we may have, any funds that can account for oil changes, car maintenance, tires, things like that, things that break around the house that you need to maybe pay a tradesman for, like a plumber or electrician. So those are the running balances. They don't really have a goal or a due date. I like to keep about 1,000 in each, but for right now, I'm just going to put them down so I will remember. And for this upcoming year, since I'm really focused on our financial goals, I'm not going to add some of the other ones that I had in the past, such as a travel fund or photos, like for family photos. We're going to try to forego those for at least the beginning of the year, at least the first half, so that we can focus on our financial goals. And then maybe we can add them in a little later throughout the year, or honestly just make it a challenge so that we don't spend those categories for 2025 until we get back on track and maybe pick it back up in 2026. So we'll see how that goes. But I want to add all this up to see what we have. Oh, and also some people have medical. We actually have an HSA, so a health savings account that we fund throughout the year with pre-tax dollars from our paycheck that allows us to use it for medical expenses throughout the year. All right, so in order to stay on track, and I say stay on track because most of the times if you don't account for these things, this is what can lead to additional debt, credit card debt, when you really just don't have the funds accounted for, you don't have the funds allocated, you don't have the funds saved when these things come up. The good thing is we know these things are going to come up. It's not a surprise, so we might as well get ready for it and prepare accordingly. All right, so that, I believe that's 7,600. And if we save at least a minimum of 7,600 for the year, that will account for our major sinking funds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. And then of course the home maintenance and car maintenance, we do try to, you know, put some things in as often as we can. And again, I may come back and put a amount, but for right now, that's where we are. So if you are a paper budgeter and like to fill this out, you can do the beginning balance, and people track their sinking funds every month. Because I kind of know sinking funds are made to be spent, I don't really focus too much on the beginning and ending balance or the plus or minus throughout the months or the quarter, because again, I know these are made to be spent. They're actually created to have a zero balance, because you want to make sure that when the bill is due, that you have the amount to pay it in full. So I don't really track these as much, but you have to do whatever works for you and your budget. So some people like to track every single dime, all the movement. I just like to see what the ending balance is and how close I am to the goal. The good thing about our savings account is that if you put in the goal amount and the goal date, it tracks it for you. So it tells you what percentage you are at and lets you know when you're 100%, when you've met 100% of your goal. So that helps me tremendously, and I don't have to go in and check it and track it all the time. That's it for this video. I hope you've taken some time to sit down and write down your sinking fund categories for the upcoming year. Comment below if you have a sinking fund category that you feel is essential. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, whatever you put your focus and your energy toward, you're bound to see progress.